The midday heat crushed the Oshodi market like a giant fist pressing down from above. Adaeze Okonkwo spread her worn tarpaulin across the dusty ground, carefully arranging her wax fabrics with their brilliant patterns, electric blues, solar yellows, blood reds. All around her, Lagos roared its existence into being. Fish vendors shouting their prices through the thick air, women haggling in Yoruba with voices sharp as knives, barefoot children weaving between the stalls like water finding its path. The mingled scent of gasoline, grilled suya, and overripe fruit hung suspended in the saturated atmosphere. She traced her fingertips along a particularly beautiful cloth, her thoughts drifting to Chike. Her younger brother had reached 16 now. The school fees for next term weighed on her heart like a stone someone had placed there deliberately. Just 2 more sales today, and I'll have enough. She lifted her head, prepared to welcome customers. That's when the purr of powerful engines tore through the market's ambient noise. 3 black Mercedes, followed by a white Rolls-Royce Phantom, invaded the narrow street, forcing pedestrians to press themselves flat against walls. The horns blared, imperious, dismissive. Adaeze froze in place. Everyone recognized those vehicles. The Phantom, Obinna Nwachukwu, the wealthiest and most enigmatic man in all of Lagos. The Rolls came to rest 3 meters from her stall. The door swung open. A man emerged, tall, commanding, wearing a pearl grey 3-piece suit that probably cost more than everything she owned combined. Dark glasses despite the shade, a gold watch that captured and threw back the light. Behind him, 4 bodyguards with squared shoulders scanned the crowd with glacial stares. Obinna Nwachukwu moved as though the ground belonged to him, which it probably did. "Clear the path," one of the guards barked. Before Adaeze could react, a brutal hand seized her arm and yanked her violently aside. She stumbled, fell to her knees. Her wax fabric, so carefully folded, scattered across the mud and dust. A boot trampled the blue cloth, the one she'd intended for Chike. Her breath caught from rage more than pain as Adaeze raised her eyes. The billionaire continued his march, undisturbed, as though she didn't exist, as though she were merely an obstacle of no consequence. Around her the crowd had fallen silent. Some lowered their eyes, resigned. Others whispered, but no one dared intervene. Something detonated inside her. "Hey!" Her voice cracked across the silence. "You!" Obinna stopped, turned slowly. Behind the dark glasses, his expression remained impossible to read. Adaeze pulled herself upright, trembling with fury, clutching the soiled fabric in her hands. "You think your money gives you the right to walk over people?" A guard stepped forward, threatening, but Obinna raised his hand to halt him. "Who are you supposed to be?" His voice came out deep, almost weary. "A heartless phantom who's forgotten where he came from." Adaeze spat the words. "A wealthy man who no longer sees poor people because they're too far beneath your gaze." Something flickered across Obinna's face, an imperceptible tightening of the jaw. "Look," she brandished the destroyed fabric. "This was for my brother, so he could continue school. But you, what does any of that matter to you?" The silence had become absolute now. Even the flies seemed to hold their flight. Adaeze felt tears of rage burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Never in front of him. Instead, she did what her grandmother had taught her before dying. She raised her right hand, fingers spread wide, and pronounced the words in Igbo. "Nti gi ga eto rue mugbe imutara ige nti nahuhu ndi ozo." May your ears grow until you learn to listen to the suffering of others. The words resonated like divine judgment. Mama Ngozi, the palm oil seller, brought her hand to her mouth. In Igbo culture, one didn't cast a curse lightly. This was calling upon the ancestors themselves. Obinna slowly removed his glasses. For the first time, Adaeze saw his eyes, black, deep, and troubled, as if haunted by something she couldn't comprehend. He stared at her for so long she felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Then, without a word, he replaced his glasses and returned to his vehicle. The doors slammed shut. The convoy pulled away, leaving behind a cloud of red dust and oppressive silence. Adaeze gathered her fabrics with a trembling hand. No one helped her. You didn't touch someone who had just cast a curse. Even Adaeze kept her distance, her gaze filled with pity and fear. That evening, in the tiny room she shared with Chike in Adaeze, Adaeze washed her face in a basin of lukewarm water. Her reflection danced in the cracked mirror hanging on the wall. She touched her ears absent-mindedly. A strange sensation ran through her, like a tingling, a dull heat. It's just exhaustion, she told herself as she slipped beneath the thin sheet. But something deep inside her knew that wasn't true. That night, Adaeze woke with a start, hands clamped over her ears. They had grown. This was no longer her imagination. The mirror didn't lie. Adaeze ran her trembling fingers over her ears. They had enlarged, not drastically, but enough that the change was undeniable. The lobes hung slightly lower, the outer ears had widened. Her heart pounded in her chest. No, 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 this can't be possible. Ada? Cheek's sleepy voice made her jump. Her brother sat up on his mat, frowning. What's happening? It's barely 5 o'clock. She turned away quickly, searching for her Jewel head wrap. Her clumsy hands tied the orange fabric around her head, concealing her ears beneath the elaborate folds. In the mirror, her face looked drawn, her eyes reddened from sleeplessness. Ada, look at me. Cheek stood, crossed the tiny room in 3 strides. He was almost as tall as she was now, with the same high cheekbones, the same determined gaze. Show me. It's nothing. Show me. She slowly lowered the head wrap. Cheek's eyes widened, his hand instinctively rising to his mouth. For one terrible moment, Adaeze thought he might laugh or recoil in disgust, but instead he placed his hands on her shoulders. We'll find a solution, together. The tears she'd been holding since yesterday finally broke free. Returning to Oshodi Market became an ordeal. The first looks were ones of pity. Then came the whispers. Then the phones raised high, videos filmed secretly. Adaeze tried to sell her fabrics, head wrapped in her jewel, but the fabric kept slipping, revealing her deformed ears at intervals. Hey, that's her! The girl who cursed the phantom! Look at her ears! Like an elephant! Laughter erupted, cruel as blades. A group of teenagers approached, phones brandished. Auntie Elephant Ears! Smile for TikTok! Adaeze clenched her teeth, kept her eyes fixed on her fabrics. Ignore them! They'll leave eventually. But they didn't leave. Within hours, the videos exploded across Nigerian social media. Hashtag Oshodi Curse. Hashtag Elephant Ears Girl. Thousands of views, shares, mocking comments. Her face, her ears, her shame exposed to all of Lagos. Customers turned away. Who would want to buy from the cursed woman? One didn't joke about such things. The curse might be contagious. Only Adaeze, the elderly palm oil vendor whose stall adjoined hers, dared approach. She placed a wrinkled hand on Adaeze's arm. My daughter, go home today. Let the storm pass. I can't, Mama. I need to sell. Not in this condition. They'll devour you alive. As if confirming her words, a familiar voice rose behind her. Adaeze, is that really you? She turned around. Tunde, her former suitor, the one who had promised marriage 2 years ago before disappearing when she had nothing left to offer as dowry. There he stood, arms crossed, a mocking smile on his lips. So it's true what they're saying? You insulted the billionaire and now... He burst out laughing. Thank God I escaped that. Imagine if I'd married you. Something shattered inside her. Adaeze gathered her fabrics with a sharp gesture, stuffed them into her bag, and left without a word. Tunde's laughter pursued her all the way to the market exit. Adaeze had never seemed so small, so suffocating. The neighborhood was waking in its vibrant poverty. Women pounding cassava in large wooden mortars, barefoot children running between corrugated iron houses, men repairing motorcycles in front of their makeshift workshops. The muddy alleys snaked between dwellings, pressed tightly against one another, as if seeking to keep each other warm. In the distance, beyond the rusted roofs, the glass towers of Victoria Island were visible, so close yet from another universe entirely. Adaeze looked away. In their room, Chike was waiting, sitting on his mat, school uniform folded beside him. "Ada, the school sent a message. If we don't pay by Friday, I'll be expelled." She sat heavily on the cement floor. Friday, 3 days away, and she hadn't sold a single fabric in a week. "I'll find a solution." "How?" "Nobody wants to come near you anymore." He was right. The rumor had spread through Ajagunle too. Neighbors crossed to the other sidewalk when they saw her. Children pointed at her. Even the women who had pounded cassava together for years turned their backs. The sun was declining, tinting the sky pink and orange, when a black Mercedes stopped in front of their house. Conversations ceased instantly. Doors cracked open, faces pressed against windows. Obina Nwachukwu stepped out of the car, alone. No bodyguards, no dark glasses. Just a man in a white shirt and black trousers who seemed almost ordinary in this setting of tin and mud. Except nothing about him was ordinary. He planted himself before Adaeze's door. Their gazes met through the doorway. The billionaire's eyes were no longer cold. They were tormented. "I have a proposition for you." The silence of Ajagunle was deafening. Adaeze felt every gaze weighing on her, curious, terrified, envious. Cheeks slipped behind her, protective despite his youth. "Come live in my residence for 3 months. I'll find a way to break this curse. And in exchange?" "Nothing." He paused. "Just your presence." The words were simple, but the weight behind them was immense. Adaeze looked at her brother, their miserable room, the unpaid bills scattered across the crate that served as their table. Then she looked at the man who had triggered her misfortune. 3 months in his golden prison in exchange for a chance to become invisible again, to become human again. She had no choice left. "I accept," she murmured, fists clenched. The iron gate opened onto another world. Adaeze descended from the Mercedes, her worn cloth bag pressed against her chest, and stood frozen before the Ikoyi villa. 3 stories of glass and white stone, an infinity pool shimmering under the afternoon sun, a tropical garden where red hibiscus exploded between palm trees. On the terrace, modern Yoruba sculptures stood alongside designer furniture. The pool water was cleaner than what she drank in Ajagunle. "This way, miss." A servant in an impeccable uniform guided her inside. The other employees, cook, gardener, maids, stopped to stare at her. Their gazes slid over her Jeel head wrap, deformed by her hidden ears, over her dusty sandals, leaving traces on the immaculate marble. "Intruder," their eyes said. Morbid curiosity. The room assigned to her was larger than her entire Ajagunle house. King-size bed draped in white linen, marble bathroom with a bathtub vast enough to drown in, panoramic window overlooking Lagos, the real Lagos of the wealthy, not that of the poor. Adaeze sat on the bed's edge, unable to touch anything, terrified of soiling this perfection. She thought of Chike, who would sleep tonight on his mat in their tin room. Guilt knotted her throat. The following days unfolded in a grotesque parade. First came the doctors. 3 specialists in white coats who examined her ears from every angle, took measurements, shook their heads with perplexed expressions. No medical explanation. Then came the marabouts. An old man in a white boo-boo traced symbols on the floor with chalk, burned incense that stung Adaeze's eyes. He chanted in Yoruba for an hour. Nothing changed. Next, a traditional healer with piercing eyes. She prepared a bath of bitter leaves, made Adaeze drink a decoction that tasted of earth and regret. The curse is powerful. It comes from the heart. Each attempt failed. Each morning before the mirror, Adaeze noted that her ears had grown again, imperceptibly, but inexorably. Obina attended each session, jaw clenched, gaze increasingly dark. He spoke almost not at all, gave brief orders, disappeared into his office for hours. The third night, Adaeze still wasn't sleeping. The villa's silence was oppressive, so different from Ajagunle's living noise. Barking dogs, humming generators, neighbors arguing. Here, nothing, just cold, mute luxury. She slipped on a bathrobe found in the wardrobe and went out to explore. Her bare feet glided across the cool marble. The house slept, plunged in golden half-light. Light filtered beneath a half-open door, Obina's office. She approached soundlessly, pushed the door slightly. He was there, his back turned, motionless before the massive ebony desk. In his hands, a photograph yellowed by time. Adaeze entered. "You're not sleeping either?" He barely startled, as if expecting her presence, turned slowly. His eyes were reddened, from fatigue or tears, impossible to tell. "I rarely sleep." She approached, saw the photo he held, a thin woman dressed in a faded wrapper, standing before a miserable market stall. Tomatoes piled in wicker baskets. Her face bore that particular dignity of the poor, who refuse to bow their heads. "My mother," he said simply. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken words. "She died selling tomatoes at Oshodi." His voice broke slightly. "Exactly where I met you." Adaeze felt something shift in her chest. She looked at the man before her, no longer the arrogant billionaire, but a son contemplating his mother's ghost. "That's why I ignored you." "Yes." He set down the photo with infinite delicacy. "Because seeing you there, in her place, selling the same fabric she sold, it was unbearable. So you acted as though I didn't exist. I changed my name. Obina Okonkwo died in those streets. I built an empire on forgetting." He finally looked at her. "And you forced me to remember." Adaeze crossed her arms, troubled by the vulnerability she perceived. "You destroyed me to protect your lie?" "No." He took a step closer. "I destroyed you because I forgot who I was." The silence fell again, but different this time, charged with nascent understanding, with a connection neither wanted to name. Obina's eyes sought Adaeze's, and for the first time, she saw not coldness, but a pain, twin to her own. "You cursed me," he murmured, "but perhaps you saved me." Adaeze instinctively brought her hand to her neck, where rested the pendant she never removed, that small bronze cross the dying woman had entrusted to her at the orphanage 16 years ago. Obina suddenly paled, his gaze fixed on the jewelry, as if he'd just seen a ghost. "Where?" His voice trembled like never before. "Where did you get that? Answer me!" Obina's voice shook. "Where did you get that pendant?" Adaeze stepped back instinctively, her hand clutching the bronze cross. "At the orphanage. I was 12 years old." "Which orphanage? When?" "The one in Surulere, 16 years ago." She hesitated, troubled by the intensity of his stare. "A dying woman came, thin, sick. She gave me this saying, 'Give it to your brother when he's grown. Tell him his mother never stopped loving him.'" Obina staggered, gripped the desk. His lips moved without any sound emerging. "Describe her." She had deep black eyes, a scar on her right temple. She whispered a name before leaving. "Obina!" He collapsed into the chair, head in his hands. A raw sob escaped him, a terrible sound, like a wounded animal. "That pendant belonged to my mother." Each word tore at his throat. "She gave it to me when I was 7. I lost it in the street after her disappearance." The silence fell like a stone into a well's depths. "You are..." Adaeze couldn't finish the sentence. Her mind refused to comprehend what her heart already knew. "Your brother." He finally raised his eyes to her, his face devastated. "I'm your older brother." Adaeze's world tilted. Memories flooded in, chaotic. The dying woman who squeezed her hand. "I had a first son. I lost him in the streets. Forgive me, my baby." The night she cradled the pendant, imagining that missing older brother. Cheek asking, "Do you think he's looking for us somewhere?" And now he was here, the arrogant billionaire, the man who had humiliated her, her own blood. "I didn't know," Obina stammered. "After her death, I survived alone. I stole, begged, lied. I erased everything that connected me to her, changed my name, destroyed the photos." He stood, approached. "I cursed you when you're my sister." Adaeze felt her legs give way. She fell to her knees, the pendant pressed against her heart. "You abandoned us. Mama searched for you until her last breath. I didn't know she was still alive." He knelt before her. When I returned to Oshodi with money years later, no one knew her. I thought she was dead. She died thinking you'd forgotten her." Tears rolled down Obinna's cheeks. For the first time since she'd known him, Adaeze saw the man behind the mask, the abandoned child, the broken survivor. He extended his arms. She hesitated, then threw herself into them. They wept together, for their mother, for the lost years, for the fraternal embrace fate had stolen from them. "Forgive me," he murmured into her hair. "She never forgot you," she replied. The nocturnal garden filled the air with jasmine fragrance. Adaeze and Obinna walked beneath the mango trees, their shadows intertwined by moonlight. He told her everything: the hunger that gnawed at his belly, nights under bridges, the businessman who gave him his chance in exchange for dirty services. "I became wealthy by becoming someone else, a phantom without a past. I found my strength in poverty," she said softly, "because I knew Chiki was counting on me." He stopped, tenderly wiped away the tears still rolling down her cheeks. "I'll never leave you alone again. Not you nor Chike." She took his hand. "You really came back, thanks to your curse." They sat on a stone bench. The silence was no longer heavy, but soothing. A sacred bond was weaving between them, that of rediscovered blood, of reconstructed family. "There's something else you need to know." Obinna's tone had changed, darker. "My associates, Chief Emeka Okafor and the others, they have a project for Ajagunle." Adaeze stiffened. "What kind of project?" "They want to demolish the neighborhood, build a luxury complex, hotels, upscale residences." He clenched his fists. "I signed the document 6 months ago, before meeting you." She leapt to her feet. "What? I didn't know it was your neighborhood. I didn't know that." He fell silent, overwhelmed by the weight of his choices. "When? The bulldozers arrive tomorrow." Adaeze felt rage and fear explode within her. Mama Ngozi, the women pounding cassava, the barefoot children playing, Chike. "I can cancel the operation," Obinna said quickly. "I just need time." "There's no more time!" She headed toward the house. "I'm returning to Ajagunle. You can't do anything alone. They're my people." She turned, eyes shining with determination. "They're my family too. I can't abandon them." "You're safe here." "I don't need safety. I need to fight." The next morning, the bulldozers arrived at Ajagunle. Adaeze looked at Obinna one last time from the villa's threshold. He wanted to hold her back. She saw it in his eyes, but he understood too. She put on her most beautiful Jeel head wrap, bright orange like a battle cry. Her giant ears deformed the fabric, visible to all. She no longer hid them. "Let me go," she said firmly. "This is my fight now." The yellow bulldozers were already roaring when Adaeze arrived at Ajagunle. She stepped out of the taxi, brilliant orange Jeel head wrap, giant ears visible beneath the fabric. The neighbors who had avoided her for weeks stopped dead. Mama Ngozi was the first to approach. "My daughter, you came back. I couldn't stay there while they destroy our home." Chike emerged from the crowd, embraced his sister. "Ada, we didn't know what to do." Adaeze looked at the machines advancing slowly toward the first tin houses. Men in white helmets were distributing orders. The police were there, batons in hand. "We fight," she said simply. The word passed from mouth to mouth. Within minutes, a human chain formed before the bulldozers, women with babies on their backs, men with calloused hands, children firmly holding their parents' legs. Adaeze positioned herself at the center, Mama Ngozi to her right, Chike to her left. "We will not move," she cried. The black Mercedes split through the crowd. Chief Emeka Okafor descended from it, a corpulent man in a three-piece suit, massive gold ring, carnivorous smile. Behind him, a dozen armed police officers. "Who dares block my construction?" He advanced, spotted Adaeze. His smile widened, cruel. "Ah, the elephant-eared girl." He spat on the ground. "You're nothing but a poor girl with monster ears. Nobody will listen to you." Adaeze took a step forward. Her heart was racing, but her voice was steady. "I'm a woman who's no longer afraid of you." The murmurs ceased. Every gaze converged on her. "You think your money gives you the right to crush everything?" she continued. These houses may be tin, but they're our homes. These alleys are muddy, but that's where we learn to walk. Chief Emeka signaled to the police. Arrest this mad woman. But phones had risen. Local journalists were filming. Social media was already broadcasting live. #Ajagunle resists. Adaeze climbed onto a crate, dominating the crowd. Her voice carried, clear and powerful. You can destroy our houses, but not our dignity. We are the invisible ones Lagos forgot, but we exist. We have names, stories, dreams. Adaeze! Adaeze! The crowd chanted her name. Chief Emeka turned scarlet. Disperse them, by force if necessary. The police advanced, batons raised. A voice thundered through a megaphone. Stop! Everyone turned. Obinna Nwachukwu emerged from his car dressed simply, jeans and white shirt. No bodyguards, no dark glasses, just a man walking toward his past. He planted himself between Adaeze and Chief Emeka, facing the cameras of the entire world. My name is Obinna Okonkwo. His voice trembled slightly. Son of a tomato seller who died at Oshodi. The silence was total. All of Lagos held its breath before their screens. I grew up in these streets you want to destroy. I begged in these alleys. I survived thanks to the solidarity of these people. He gestured toward the crowd. Then I became ashamed. I changed my name. I built a fortune on forgetting. Chief Emeka turned pale. Obinna, have you gone mad? Think of our contracts. I'm thinking of my soul. He extended his hand toward Adaeze. She took it, trembling. This is my sister. This is my truth. The cameras crackled, smartphones recorded, history was being rewritten live. I publicly denounce Chief Emeka Okafor and his associates for corruption, land theft and violence. Obinna brandished documents. Here is the proof of your crimes. Chief Emeka shouted, You're finished! No one will work with you anymore. Perhaps. Obinna smiled, a smile free for the first time. But I can finally look at myself in a mirror. He squeezed Adaeze's hand tighter. I announce the creation of the Mother Okonkwo Foundation, complete reconstruction of Ajagunle, schools, clinics, dignified housing. The crowd exploded in cheers. Adaeze felt something strange on her head. She brought her hand to her ears. They were shrinking, slowly but visibly. The curse was breaking, not through magic, but through true listening, through redemption, through rediscovered love. Chief Emeka, humiliated, isolated, backed toward his car under the jeers. The police officers lowered their weapons, uncertain. Obinna and Adaeze looked at each other. Tears flowed down their cheeks. We're together now, he murmured. Forever, she replied. 6 months later, Adaeze stood before a mirror. Her ears had returned to their normal size, but she still wore her geel head wraps, now from pride, not shame. 6 months had been enough to transform Ajagunle. Adaeze walked through the metamorphosed streets, her heart swelling with a pride she never would have thought possible. The tin houses had given way to solid dwellings in vibrant colors, yellow, turquoise, orange. The brand new primary school displayed solar panels on its roof, and children played in a concrete courtyard with real swings. The free community clinic, inaugurated 3 months ago, offered dignified care. No more dying for lack of money. The covered market now protected vendors from rain and sun, with clean wooden stalls and constant electricity. On the walls, giant murals told the neighborhood's story. Women pounding cassava, laughing children, the resistance against bulldozers. One fresco depicted a woman with giant ears raising a victorious fist. Adaeze stopped before the cooperative building. Ajagunle Weavers, Pride of Africa, announced the sign. Inside, 20 women worked on modern looms, creating wax cloths exported as far as Senegal, Ghana, Ivory Coast. Her own business, her dream become reality. Ada! Mamangozi waved from the counter. A new contract from Benin! Adaeze smiled. The old palm oil vendor was now co-manager, living guardian of the neighborhood's memory. The University of Lagos teemed with students when Adaeze came to collect Chike. He emerged from the lecture hall, backpack over his shoulder, surrounded by classmates discussing animatedly. top of his class in law, her little brother who would defend the voiceless, who would carry their story before the courts. The bronze pendant gleamed at his neck. "Ready for the cemetery?" he asked softly. "Ready." The Ikoyi villa had become more subdued. Obina welcomed them in jeans and a simple shirt. No more three-piece suits, no more ostentatious gold watch. He visited Ajagunle each week, trained young entrepreneurs from the streets, offered them what had never been given to him, a chance without lies. "The phantom is dead," he had declared during an interview. "The man is born." The major associates had abandoned him. High society circles turned their backs, but each evening he finally slept in peace. "Let's go," he said simply. The popular cemetery extended at Lagos's periphery, far from the wealthy's marble mausoleums. Here, modest graves pressed against one another, marked with painted wooden crosses. Their mothers was simple. Mother Okonkwo, tomato seller, dignified woman. Adaeze, Obina, and Chike stood before the stone, a young mango tree in a bag between them. Together, they dug into the red earth, planted the tree that would grow in the shadow of her memory. "She would be proud," Adaeze murmured, wiping her earthy hands. "You finally learned to listen." Obina looked at his hands, hands that had stolen, that had built an empire on forgetting, that now planted a tree in homage. "You taught me, with your words and your curse." Chike placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "And now, we're truly a family." They remained silent for a long moment, three orphans reunited by pain and redemption. Above them, a flight of birds crossed the sky, black eagles with wings spread wide, symbols of reconquered freedom. The television news broadcast the images. Chief Emeka Okafor, sentenced to 15 years in prison for corruption, land theft and violence. Ajagunle lands returned to their inhabitants, a historic victory for Lagos's marginalized communities. Adaeze turned off the television. Justice had been served. Oshodi market hadn't changed. The same shouts, the same smells, the same teeming life. But Adaeze returned different. She was no longer alone with her worn tarpaulin. 10 employees from her cooperative accompanied her, selling quality fabrics under a common banner. Her ears had returned to their normal size long ago, yet she still wore her orange gel head wrap, no longer to hide, but from pride, from choice. A barefoot child approached timidly, staring at the fabrics with brilliant patterns. "It's beautiful," he murmured. Adaeze knelt to his level, recognized in his eyes the hunger she had known. "What's your name?" "Emmanuel." She handed him a small blue cloth. "Here, for your first day of school." I can't pay." "It's a gift." She gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "Never be ashamed of who you are, Emmanuel, where you come from, because that's what will make you strong." The child clutched the fabric against him, eyes shining with tears and hope. Adaeze stood, looked around her. Mama Ngozi selling her fabrics with dignity, Chiki studying to become a lawyer, Obina rebuilding what he had destroyed, and herself standing in this market where everything had begun. The Lagos sun flooded the stalls with golden light. In the streets of Lagos, where poverty cries out and where wealth becomes deaf, Adaeze had understood what so many forget. Our ears truly grow only when our hearts finally accept to hear. And sometimes one must be cursed to rediscover one's blessing. For the curse wasn't in her giant ears, but in the silence of those who refuse to listen to the suffering of their own. Sometimes the curses we fear most are actually disguised blessings that force us to confront our deepest truths. Adaeze's story reminds us that dignity isn't measured by the size of our ears, but by the greatness of our heart, and that true listening begins when we stop fleeing from who we really are. In a world where the wealthy become deaf and the poor invisible, it's our shared humanity that breaks all curses. If this story touched something in you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another one of our powerful stories. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from right now. We absolutely love connecting with you.